Hello, I think we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my first ever live stream. If you're here, I'm already so grateful for you. This is so fun. I have one of my all-time favorite people and writing besties, Brielle, with me tonight. So if you're new to my channel and joining from her channel, I'll introduce myself so quick and then I'll let her introduce herself. But my name's Andy. I am a new author working on her debut novel, and I am in the revision trenches. Already had one breakdown today about it, so we're in it for sure. But that's a little bit about me. Brielle, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, I'm Brielle. For any of you who don't know me, I have my own channel, Brielle Writes, and I am also in the revision trenches working on draft 2 of a new adult fantasy. I'm going to be working on chapter 14 today.
Yes, awesome. Drop in the chat what you're working on if you want. I actually have a banner for that, so perfect. I'll throw that up. Yeah, drop in the chat what you guys are working on. Let's see. Hi, Ruth Rice. Alyssa's back. The daily revision breakdown. Oh, yeah, no, seriously. This was my first like real one though. Like today I shed a tear. And up until this point I've never cried. I've just been like, this kind of sucks. So, yeah. Real, have you had any like really tough moments in revision yet?
I did not mean to thumbs up as you talk about crying. No, I have not had like a full breakdown moment yet, but I'm sure it will come. I'm sure it will come.
At some point, yes.
Mm.
Hi, Josie. Let's see. Ruth is working on. Oh no, this is about waking. I saw that about the 5 a.m. thing. That's crazy. You're crazy for that. Amina, hi. So nice to have you here. 10K, dude. Double digits is wild. That takes so much work. So good for you. That's such a milestone to hit.
Congrats.
Ian is plotting book 2 of sci-fi crime thriller series. Wow. Is book 1 like already revised and in the publishing process? Are you gonna publish? Is this just for you? Let us know what you're doing with book 1. That's cool.
That is cool.
Let's see here. Alyssa, chapter 25. Should be chapter
Girl,
23.
we could only dream of being at chapter 25. What chapter are you on, Andy?
17. 16 and 17. 16 I thought I was done with today. I cried because I think I'm not. So 16 and 17. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, Alyssa, I feel like you talk all this talk about not being able to get progress done, but you are the most achieving it person that I know.
Seriously.
Vea, chapter 9, almost done. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Adam, wrapping up some paperwork. Let's see, anybody else? Isabella. Ooh, YA romance, always fun.
That is fun.
We need those in the world. All right, awesome. Looks like everybody's working on some good stuff. Alyssa's always also making bread. Okay, you have to drop your bread recipe next time you record it in a vlog, because watching that, I was like, that looks so simple. I feel like even I could do it, and I need to do that. So that's fun. Awesome. Well, we'll probably jump into questions after our first live stream. So if you guys are ready, we'll set the timer for 25 minutes. We're going to probably do at least 2 tonight, and then we'll kind of feel it out, see how the third one feels. But if everybody's ready, we'll hop right into that.
I'm scared.
I know, same. I'm also so nervous. So one moment, let me. All right.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck, everybody. I will be muting myself just so you know. Okay, here we go.
You're still muted.
Let me try again. Hello.
Oh,
How did everyone's sprint go?
dude, I don't know what happened, but I reworked like almost 1,000 words. I mean, some of it was just editing, but some of it I just rewrote. So,
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Was that like a big scene that you were planning to do a lot of rewrite with, or just kind of impulsive worked out?
no, I think I'm just like generally rewriting most things, not even changing drastically, but just like rewording a lot at this point. And
Sure.
it's almost easier for me that way than trying to
Mhm.
tinker in the weeds of existing sentences. So, yeah, nothing drastic is changing, but it's more just like I'm changing small details and brushing things up. Um, yeah.
I
How about
love
you? How
that.
was your session?
It's good. I ended up I know I shared a little bit with Brielle before the live stream about this, but I basically decided this one change I was going to make, I'm going to experiment with what would happen if I didn't change it to see if that flows a little more naturally because I was really hitting a roadblock earlier today with what that change might look like. And so far it's already a lot better. I'm not crying, so that's great. That's a good start. So I'm feeling better about it. It definitely still feels like the right shift. Basically, the first time I drafted the book, I felt like the male main guy didn't come out exactly how I envisioned him in my mind. So I knew he was going to need a lot of rework and revision no matter what, just to be the character I wanted him to be. So those changes still I feel really confident about. It's just the like way the scenes play out because of that change that is a lot of work. So
Yeah. That
yeah.
makes, oh, I'm not trying to thumbs up, I swear.
Oh, that's funny. It's good. It's good. Alyssa ate bread and edited one paragraph. I love that. That's so great.
That is amazing.
Cooking dinner is productive. It really is.
Yes, it is.
100 words. Adam had a handful of words. While I'm going through these, if you guys want to drop some questions in the chat, I'm sure Brielle and I would love to answer some.
Yes.
Scrapping a whole scene. Yeah, okay. Margot, I relate. I relate to this a lot. This has been my life lately. Um, I decided to try to fix my OBS instead, figured out how to fix it, and it was so simple that it was both frustrating and funny. We love those moments when you're like, how come I couldn't think of that so long ago?
Mm-hmm. True.
Oh, as background noise, I had a documentary about Hitchcock making Dial M for Murder. Never heard of that, but if that works for you as background noise, that is great. That's great. Hey, outline 395. That's great.
That's pretty
Awesome.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see here. Oh, Haley had 520. That's great. All right. Well, it looks like Lillian has a question. We could start there. If your books had a trailer, what song would you want to be in it? Ooh.
Do you have it? I have an answer right off the
You
bat.
go. You go then, because I don't.
I've mentioned this in a stream before, but there is, so I have a music playlist for this book. And the first song, which I want to keep this as a trend, the first song to me is like sets the tone, sets the
Mhm.
vibe. And whenever I'm like picturing like a trailer type situation, this is the song that I'm picturing. And it is People I Don't Like by Upsall.
I don't know that song.
I didn't either. I discovered it when looking for songs for the book, which is my
Okay.
preferred way to do it, is like I want the song to only be associated with the book for me. Like I had
Cool.
no idea this song existed beforehand type of thing.
No, that's smart. That's smart. Like I always feel, I don't know, in my trailer this would not work, but I always feel inspired, and I've mentioned this before in live streams, by Noah Kahan's lyrics, especially the whole Stick Season album. And none of those songs would work in a trailer. It's not the vibe of the book. But the lyrics specifically just feel like things my characters would say. So, or certain, I don't even know how it relates because the vibe of the book feels very different from his music, but in my mind, it's like a connection. So, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think if I had to pick a song, that would probably be something from like a Lord of the Rings epic soundtrack like that. I can't picture anything I've heard with words that would work directly with this. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, sometimes there's like songs that you can't specifically put your finger on what is the
yeah.
connection, but it's just like this just reminds me of the book, or this just like
Mhm.
feels like the book, and it's like hard to conceptualize. But I think
Yeah.
that's magical. Like,
I know. It's always like when I'm on a run or something, I feel like I'll be listening to Noah Kahan and I'm picturing my book and scenes in my book while listening to him sing, but then I'm like, no one else would understand this connection. It's just
Yeah.
listening, I guess. Okay. Josie, how do you decide how much character development to put in your first book versus sequels? Oh, great question.
This is a great question. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Up to you. I don't care.
You go first.
Okay. Well, as the fact that I have not yet drafted the sequel, I don't feel like I can fully knowledgeably answer this, so I'll just be upfront with that. But from where I'm at right now in the writing process, I think the biggest thing I'm worried about in the first book is creating characters that are emotionally tied to my audience. So I need to have enough depth and enough development that the audience cares. Like every time I talked about this a little bit in my introducing my characters video, but one question I asked myself when kind of outlining my characters and deciding background details was, why should the audience care? Especially for your MC, if they're supposed to follow a whole trilogy, or I know Brielle's doing 2 books, but for me, I'm trying to do 3. And it's like, if they don't care in the first book, they're not going to pick up the second or the third. So I need to find a way to develop them enough that they have pulled in the audience. But obviously, I don't want the whole character arc to unfold in one book. So there has to be unfinished business by the end of the first one that leaves the audience wanting more, or maybe disliking the character a little bit. Dislikable characters are a lot more intriguing than lovable, perfect characters who never make a mistake, because that'd be a boring story. So I don't know. That's the best answer I've got. So, Brielle?
I liked that. I thought about this a lot actually, because I realized when I was working on my characters' like needs, what they're gonna learn, like all of that stuff, I was like, wait a second, I need to think about 2 arcs here. Like, what's the book 1 arc and what's the duology arc? So I basically came up with 2 lessons that my character is going to learn, one for the first book and one that spans the whole duology, so that it's super clear to me. Like, okay, by the first book, I'll just tell you the exact details so that it's clearer. By the first book, she gets the will to survive. She learns that life is worth living, blah, blah, blah. But the overarching lesson is more so about like love and relying on other people and the found family vibes. So that is something that spans both books, and she hasn't quite learned that yet at the beginning of the first. So that's just kind of how I see it. Like, we see growth in this one area, but we see she hasn't quite mastered the other thing. And then in the whole duology, she'll finally learn that other lesson. So hopefully that helps. Maybe thinking about 2 different lessons that your character can learn, one in book 1 and then one in the series.
No, yeah, that's so good. Now that you say it that way, I can definitely see the arc I have for the trilogy, and then it's definitely not mirrored in the first book. Like, it's not developed. There's not enough time to develop it all. That's a great way of like breaking it up. Did you feel like those purposes kind of flowed naturally for you as you were drafting the book, or was the intention of the arc something you knew going into drafting that you wanted to be the like meaning in the book, or what the character learned?
Right. No, I had zero going into I had zero idea, and I was really intimidated by the idea of like a lesson or a theme before I started working on this, and it truly was something I learned from the draft. Like, something after the fact, I was like, yeah, these are clearly the lessons here. Not something I intended to do really, but once I solidified them, obviously I was able to see it clearer.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of happened naturally, which I think is how I'm going to approach theme going forward, because I feel like that's just how it works in my brain.
No, yeah, that's good. And it's great that you have a like purpose that came out of it that is impactful. Like, obviously discovering the will to live, that's a good one.
Right.
It's a good thing to put on your reader. So life is worth living.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna answer one more and then hop into another sprint. All right. Another smallish question. Do you guys have Pinterest boards for your book? And if so, what aesthetic and vibe are they? Great question. I can go first. I do have a Pinterest board for my book, and it's definitely like dark vibes. Like, all the colors are very muted and kind of like stormy is how I picture it. The setting in the House of Aphtose is very like gloomy. Like, it's just not a place where sun shines and birds sing. So that's kind of the vibe of the Pinterest board. Lots of images of just like women, I guess, looking BA. uh, but at the same time, I feel like I've never been able to find the right combination of images that like scratches my brain in the right way for what this book is. I think there's some elements of it that like I don't know if you're ever like this, Brielle, but like when I'm writing my book, I feel like I can see the movie of if I were to get a movie out of this book playing out in my mind. Um, and I have never seen images reflect what actually is going on in my mind well, which is the
Mhm.
beauty of writing the book is that you get to put those images in your reader's mind and hopefully describe them accurately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely haven't seen anything that's like, "Oh my gosh, that's my book." But I definitely have the essence of the vibe on a Pinterest board, and I will look at that occasionally if I need a little like honing device to go back to make sure that my storytelling is matching what I'm going for.
Ooh, okay, I love that. I want to see the Pinterest board now. I'm curious what
Okay,
I'm
I can
if it
share it with you.
yeah, send me the link. I agree that your book has those gloomy, like moody vibes. I also have a Pinterest board. It's like linked under all my videos. And it's like I don't even know how I would describe the vibes. There is some moodiness to it, but there's also a lot of like light streaming through glass, or like there's a picture of like her hand, or well, a girl's hand on a guy's chest, and there's like light coming out of it. So it plays a lot with like finding the light and like visuals that are actually in the book. Like a lot of the images go to specific scenes. So I feel like I was really able to capture the full range of emotions in the board, which I think is
Mm,
good. But I loved making a Pinterest board. Huge part of my process.
yeah,
Definitely want to keep doing.
yeah, that's so good. I feel like the light thing for me, that just like when you said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah." There's elements of like there's a huge contrast I'm trying to create between the House of Aphtose and then the other house in the book is the House of Day. And
Mhm.
the House of Day, it has like stained glass windows in the hall and like color exists there, but color doesn't exist in the same way in the House of Aphtose. And so, yeah, there's like a juxtaposition of like the light and dark and everything. So I think when I get to drafting the second book, I'll be able to utilize some images that are probably easier to find. I feel like trying to find stuff that like embodies the House of Aphtose has been hard. But yeah. All right. Well, if you guys want to drop some more questions for after this next sprint so we can hop into those when we get done. If everyone's ready, we'll go ahead and jump into our next sprint. Good luck, everyone.
Good.
I'll get the timer set. One moment. All right. Here we go. Oh, hold on.
You got it.
There you go. I hit go. There we go.
Nice. I'm
Bye,
gonna go
guys.
make some matcha. I'll be right back. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone. Hello.
How was everyone's sprint?
Mine was good. I drafted I don't know, I think like 3 or 400 words. Some of that was in chapter 16, some of it was chapter 17, and some of it was chapter 18. It was kind of like modifying 3 things at once, trying to bounce around to where I felt most confident. What about you?
I was trying to check my word count. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I reworked maybe like 500. I don't know. Things are flowing like
Yeah,
very well.
yeah, you're having good sprints. That's awesome. So good.
Yeah. I'm like so pleased with how much more specific my description has got. Like, it is night and day. Like, literally, draft one versus draft two just gets more and more drastic, which
Mm.
is awesome.
Yeah, that's so great. I love being able to see tangible, like, growth and difference. I do feel like sometimes I get to chapters I've not touched yet, like in revision, and I literally cringe or I'm like, "Ugh," you know? But then I'm always like, "Well, okay, you have to give yourself grace because when I was drafting the first draft, you're thinking like, none of this is gonna be exactly the way it is in the final book." So
Right.
then you don't always clean it up right then. So anyway,
Right.
well, it looks like we got a few questions in the chat over the sprint, but if everyone wants to say how their sprint went and drop anything additional, we can get to that as well. But let's see. There was a couple I wanted to look at. This one's good from Lillian. What are your tips for subplots and making your second act, fun and games, feel connected to the plot? Great question.
That is a great question.
You want to take this one first?
It's so much to wrap your brain around. Okay, tips for subplots. Well, the way I like to look at the fun and games section is, for me, it's usually a time for our characters to grow in some or several aspects. And so they're kind of becoming the person that the finale needs them to be, type of what thing. So in that way, I feel like it's inherently a bit connected to the plot. Like, it is letting us see the character evolve in one way or another into the person that can then be the protagonist in the end of the book. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. Um, and I know I've heard other people say, like, your fun and game section is supposed to be the promise of the premise, like where we're seeing the journey, if it's a journey book, or where we're seeing the magic, if it's a book with magic in it, like,
Mhm.
etc. So how can you introduce those fun elements, that journey, while also forwarding your characters and giving us a sense of, like, forward momentum?
Mhm.
I don't know. That's how I kind of see it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I feel like I've seen some stuff when I did the Save the Cat kind of breakdown after I finished my first draft. I hadn't looked at that prior to drafting, which just,
Same.
pantsing, what up? But it talked about that being like the moment you would put in a movie trailer that the audience came for, you know? So I tried to think of it like that. Um, so I definitely think everything Brielle said for the fun and games portion applies. That's the same way I approached it. I would say for subplots, especially if you have more than one moving through your book, which if you're writing more than just a standalone, the odds are you have multiple subplots because you need to have multiple things that progress throughout the series. Um,
Mhm.
so for me, those things, man, it's hard to articulate. I have a couple in my book right now that are not going to be fully fleshed out until like book 2 or book 3. So right now I'm trying to develop them by making sure I'm putting them in my audience's ear. While I don't want them to see the full development, it's like that Easter egg thing where you have to somehow, some way mention them in the words on the page. So that way later, when you have these points that are supposed to be part of your plot and the like meta story, they don't feel out of the blue or random because you want your audience to be impacted by those. Um, over time. So anyway, I think my best piece of advice with that would be don't be afraid to mention them, even if you're not ready to fully flesh them out yet.
Yeah.
Because when you fully flesh them out, they won't connect with the audience if you haven't priorly built them up. It's like building the foundation for them. So that would be my advice there. I think dialogue is one of the strongest ways to build a subplot. Mentions of things and conversations that you don't expect your reader to cling to, but
Mhm.
later when they come back up, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that bell is ringing in my mind." I mean, the point of a subplot is that it's subtle.
Right.
Echoes are sorry. I don't know if you guys could hear that. That was the timer for a break. Anyway, that's my tip there. Hopefully that's helpful. But I love what Brielle said about that's you have to see the character grow from where they're at when this book starts to the protagonist you need them to be for the book to wrap
Mm.
up. So
I love that tip on subplots. That's so smart. It's almost like you're like planting seeds to later be sown, you know?
yes, yes. Yeah,
Yes.
you can't sow them too soon, you can't sow them too late. There's like definitely a right timing for them, the same way that there's a right timing for major plot
Mhm.
arcs. So
I also feel like the longer you get in, sorry.
you're good.
I feel like the more time you spend with your story, the more it starts to feel like these characters exist outside of what's on the page. This world exists outside of what's on the page. And it becomes almost easier to see what's lingering under the surface or like what maybe we're not seeing that's later going to come into play
Mhm.
because you just have this feeling like, oh, yeah, all this stuff is happening either before this book or underneath this book that I can then like pull up whenever I want to. So it just starts to like, I don't know, it starts to feel like these things are just happening and it's not so much you coming up with things as it is like, oh, yeah, that's like going on in my world.
Yes, yes. Okay, so because you mentioned that, I'm actually gonna move forward and then we'll go back to Natalie's question. But Adam did ask this as a follow-up to Lillian's question. It says Andy, but I'm also gonna direct this to you, Brielle. When was the moment you first realized your characters had a life outside of the scenes you put on the page? Another way to say it, when did you feel that your world finally felt lived in? Um, man, for me, I think this was I think for fantasy specifically, a lot of world building is inherent to the plot. Whereas, like, if you're writing something that's in the real world, then you have the ability to go off context that already exists, like historical events that have already happened, or, food or trends or music that's popular, whatever it is in the time that you're writing. Whereas in fantasy, you have to generate all of that in your mind. And even if the reader never sees it, as the author, it's such a great tool to have in your pocket. And that goes for characters as well. So I think finding out the ways that my characters related to the historical events that I already just knew existed in the world building really helped. I think some of the like major plot points in my story, or like things that would be these, turning key moments for my MC, I had to figure out why they would be turning key moments. And to do that, I had to figure out how she related to these historical events that exist in this world. So I think once I started forming those kind of like web connections, I was able to really see dimension in the world. I think culture is another big thing. Even if you're like creating a culture is no small feat for your mind, but the more you play around with it, especially in the way you describe things, the type of verbs that you're using, those will build depth and dimension. And the same thing in like the way that your characters interact. I've tried to put a lot of different like playful banter moments between different characters in my book, and I think it helps me imagine a relationship that's off the page from theirs, or like backstory moments of like, you don't just meet someone and start having playful banter. You have to earn that.
Mhm.
So once I could write out those playful banter scenes, I could imagine the steps it took for that character to get to that point. So I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point, but for me, yeah, I'd say imagery, history, and culture probably are the biggest things that have really influenced my world feeling alive.
I love that. I completely agree and totally second what you said about connecting your characters to the historical context. I wouldn't have even had the words for that until you said that, but that is exactly what I think made it feel real for me too, was when I was doing my world building stuff after the draft, I wrote down things like how old were my characters when this
Yeah.
big world event happened, like what was the reaction in their households, like
Mhm.
things like that just makes you feel like they've actually been a participant in this society, and it just like, I don't know, through your characters almost you can make the world feel real. And yeah,
Yeah.
when you're speaking about that, I was just like, yes.
Yeah, and I think going off of what you just said, even if you only figured that out as the writer, it influences the way that you put words on the page. So
Yeah.
even if, like you said, the reaction in the household, if that's never explicitly told to the reader of like, her parents hated when this happened, blah, blah, blah. If you know the emotions your character dealt with, it gives you more of a scope of who they are as a person. So then their voice is going to be more accurate to the world that they're living in. That makes
Yes.
sense. So
Yes.
love that. Love that. Okay, now let's hop to Natalie's question. I'm thinking about doing AuthorTube. What's your best advice for someone who wants to make their first video, topic, length, editing, etc.? If you don't mind, I'm going to go first on this one because I only started AuthorTube back in May, and Brielle was like 98% of the reason I had the courage to do it. I just loved her videos, and while I enjoyed other aspects of AuthorTube, her videos specifically felt like I could do that when watching those, or like I would aspire to want to do that. And the way you spoke about writing seemed so approachable and real and relatable. So, anyway, I think anyone and everyone who feels a calling to try AuthorTube should give it a shot. If you have that kind of pull within you, then it's for me, it was a craving for community more than anything else. I don't have anybody outside of YouTube who I feel like I can sit down and like just gab for 3 hours about writing and character development and the good and the bad and all the things. And so I needed that to be able to feel like I could really dig my feet into this project and keep moving forward. So if that's where you're at, where you're feeling like, I'm not doing this for the subscribers, I'm not doing it to maybe like, I don't know, be monetized or something, I just need this extra backbone to what I'm working on, then that's what I would suggest if that's where you're at. For tips of like first video, I just honestly I watched Brielle's how to start an author tube or why you should or whatever video, and then I sat down and introduced myself and I started with a vlog. I think that's the easiest way to get comfortable with a camera. Don't try to sit down and do like a 25-minute craft video where you're explaining how to, make characters have depth or something. Start with something that feels like the shallow end. You can swim easily in it, of just like, this is what I worked on today. This is how I felt about it. And then some B-roll of you writing, some video of you just looking right at the camera and talking. I think for me, that was the least intimidating way to get started. And it was the easiest to edit because it was already broken up into chunks. And then from there, you'll kind of get to know yourself better as a creator and how you want to go moving forward. So anyway, long drawn out answer. Anyway.
No, I think it's great. And I agree. I think a vlog is a great place to start. Or, November's coming up. People are going to be drafting. People are going to be looking for, like last year, what I started with was an introduction to what I was working on for NaNoWriMo. No one knew who I was. I didn't think anyone would be very interested, but it did really well. So I think, if you're going to be working on a project, even just introducing your project to people, maybe talking about some of your goals around it, getting like, discussing your project gets people invested in you as well. So that can be a good thing to focus on in your first video. But I agree. I think AuthorTube is all about bringing people along for your personal journey and making people invested in wanting to see your progress with your book and see where you go. And so I think if you can prioritize that in your first video and really try to form a personal connection, you're going to get a lot out of it.
Absolutely. Perfect advice. I love it. Okay, people are talking about how their sprints went. I want to make sure we acknowledge that. So Lillian tried to wrap her brain around her main character's arc. That's a great thing to do. You definitely want to do that well. Let's see, 150 words. Yeah, dialogue not flowing. That's how I felt all day today. So I really relate to this. Okay, almost done lesson planning. That's amazing. Looks like Rising had a question for us. Worked on a few chapters. How important to you was hitting the beat of every beat of Save the Cat or romancing the beat in your first draft? Good question. I'm going to be honest, not very, because I didn't read all that until after I drafted it. So, yeah, well, I wish I'd cared more, and I will care more in the second book. I kind of feel like I lucked out, though, and I shared this in one of my videos, that I kind of just like luckily was not that far off from the beats. And I don't know if that was like a natural intuition to storytelling. I think it sounds really snooty if I say that, but I think it was luck. I just kind of told the story the way it lived in my brain. And then the beats were really not that far off percentage wise, at least close enough on that I could fix it in revision without like literally scrapping the whole story. So I think it's something I'll care more about going forward. But I also think it's really important, and this is just a hot take, don't let the things that are supposed to be like the how-tos of this craft control the way you tell a story, because storytelling is meant to be interpreted through the storyteller. So if that's not the way you meant to tell the story, or if you feel naturally pulled to a different way, then I feel like rules are made to be broken. And if you're intentionally breaking a rule, then you can break it. You know what I mean? Like, it's good to study up and do your research, but if you want to do it differently, don't let it supposed to be a different way hold you back.
Yes. I totally agree. And I had a very similar experience to Andy, where I didn't look at it beforehand. Miraculously, when I lined it up after draft one, I was like, oh my God, these percentages are pretty close. How did I manage that? And I don't think it's snooty at all to think it was instinct, because like all of us have been consuming stories our entire lives. And, as creative people, we pay attention to these things and we absorb it, whether it's conscious or not. So I think most people have better instincts than they give themselves credit for in terms of storytelling. And intuitively, the structure of a story, even if you might not have the words for it. So let that comfort you, I guess, that you might be closer to it than you would anticipate just naturally. But I also agree of like, I think you shouldn't let it hold you back. And I think if you try to stick to it too much to a T and it becomes too obvious or too, I don't want to say basic, but like if you're making it very like word for word sticking to Save the Cat, like it's not going to have a natural flow. It's not going to feel as organic. So yes, I think it's important to reference, of course, but I would say also let yourself feel it out as well, and like let some intuition into the equation, and don't feel like you need to stick to it like so rigidly if it's not working for your story. Like if something needs to be at 30% instead of 25%, that is fine. Like every story is different,
Yeah, you don't want to take the personality out for the sense of structure. Like let yourself come through as a writer. So okay, I'm gonna answer this, and you can totally answer it too if you want to, Brielle. But what are you guys planning or hoping to do for content during Nano? I'm personally hoping to do daily updates via YouTube Shorts. What about you? I've thought a lot about this. I am gonna do Nano per se during November. I don't know if I'll call it that in like my headlines or not yet, or thumbnails. But I'm definitely going to try to draft the second book to this series in November. And I would love to do much more frequently updated videos than I do right now, at least like 2 a week versus 1, which means they'll probably be a lot shorter, but I think that's okay. And I've talked about doing YouTube Shorts daily, or at least like a couple a week. So anyway, I'm hoping to do like basically all the content I currently do on ×2 speed, mostly because I'll have more to talk about. Right now, I've been trying to get in the habit of writing daily, but I know that to successfully do Nano, I will be needing to write nearly every single day, or at least making up the word count on the days I don't write, the days that I do. So anyway, I'm hoping to post very frequently. What about you, Brielle?
I am also hoping to post very frequently. I'm also doing the 50K Nano challenge. So it's so messy, and like because I feel like there's all this weird vibe around Nano right now, and like there's an awkward pressure for author tubers where it's like people get mad if you talk about it, but also people want to see it, and I still want to do the challenge whether I call it that or not. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But, I'm planning to do weekly drafting vlogs during November, so that will be my hopefully documentation, and I'm really excited for all those drafting videos. So that's what I'm hoping my content will look like. Whether I call it Nano anything or just drafting diaries, I don't know, but the content will be there. Oh shoot. Sorry.
Oh, good. Did it spill?
No.
Worries for spilling, I feel like.
We're good.
Okay. Love it. Awesome. Well, I don't know if there's any more pressing questions in the chat, but thank you everybody for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed this and had a good time. I'm hoping to live stream. That's one of my other goals for November, is getting to live stream more. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this and would want to join again. Oh, you got called out.
I know. Stop.
Yes. Oh, it's funny. Okay. Well, thanks, Natalie, for joining. This is sweet of you. Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining. I'm probably going to end it off here since we're near the 1.5 hour mark and I don't want to keep anybody up for hours, but thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.